Let's break down the 5 most common positions of light around the head. I will go through 1, 2 and 3 lights, but we'll start with 1 light. The light that is sculpting the face. And as long as we avoid the mentioned pitfalls, we end up with the following standardized face lights: the butterfly, the open loop, the closed loop, the Rembrandt and the split light. When the head is angled away from camera, we have 2 more light positions to consider: broad light or short light. But let's start with the first out of the 7 face lights, the butterfly. The butterfly is called so because of the shape of the nose shadow. It is shaped as a butterfly flying towards the camera. This light sculpts the face nicely and emphasizes the cheekbones and hides the neck in a pronounced neck shadow. The light is placed straight in front and above the face. To avoid having the light stand in front of the camera, I have used a C-stand arm to get the light over the camera angle. Another way is to put the light behind the camera, even though it then needs to be quite high. Notice that I have angled the flash downwards quite much, so I won't get such a bright forehead. But this is a matter of taste. The next light is the open loop. This light is called open loop because the nose shadow is not connected to the cheek shadow. This gap makes the shadow loop around the eye open, hence the name open loop. This light is called the closed loop because the eye is surrounded by shadows. The shadows form a loop around the eye. And now, let's be a bit dramatic. Let me introduce you to the Rembrandt lighting. The painter Rembrandt often painted this kind of light where the triangle on the cheek is the significant part. The Rembrandt lighting is a closed loop since the nose shadow connects to the cheek shadow, but since the eyebrow casts a shadow that creates the top of the triangle, we now have the Rembrandt. In order to set the Rembrandt light, you need to have your light quite high to get the top of the triangle. Since the eyes become quite dark without any catch lights whatsoever, this light is a very moody and dramatic lighting. You can of course combine it with some fill light to make those shadows come alive, but for me, a Rembrandt is a Rembrandt. I like it really, really dark. Faces aren't always directly towards the camera. When the head is turned a bit like this, you can decide if you want your light to be aimed to the broad side with the ear or the other side. This is called broad lighting and emphasizes the jawline, and you will never get any problems with reflections in eyeglasses. Personally, I think that broad lighting often feel very artificially lit, and this is because the light is coming from behind the camera. If you want to create a natural feeling to your light, my advice is to stick with our next light. Short lighting, my absolute favorite. It works every time. The light is aimed towards the side of the face that do not show any ear or cheek. This half is much narrower, or as the name of the light implies, shorter. When the shadow side is facing the camera, it slimmers and shapes the face so it doesn't feel flat and boring. Take a look at all movies and cool TV series, and I can assure you that the majority of all scenes is lit with short lighting. If you don't want light to feel artificial and flashy and flat and boring, go for short light. It's a safe bet. When light comes directly from the side, It is called a split light. This is because the head is splitted into one bright and one dark side. It's very, very dramatic and maybe not so pleasing, but that isn't always the cause, right? In combination with some light on the background, the split light can look really cool. We have now been looking at the 7 most common face lights. As I said earlier, this is lit with a hard light source, so the light and shadow will be visible and clear. If you use bigger light modifiers, such as softboxes or umbrellas or something, the shadows will be much softer and therefore trickier to distinguish. But the names of the light setups is of course the same. It's about the direction and placement of your light source that depicts what kind of light you're aiming for. Let's introduce flash number 2, the kicker light. By combining these face lights with a kicker from left or right, we are really starting to shape our lighting. We can also use the second light for the background. This is what I would call a wholly soft spot that really sets the focus on the face in the image. And this is done by simply lighting on the background using a tight 5-degree grid mounted on the flash head. Here I do what I call dark meets bright meets dark meets bright. The bright part of the gradient in the background is behind the dark part of the face, and that really sculpts the dramatic silhouette. I have used the edge of the light pattern from a 1x3 softbox lighting on the wall. And here we have the same kind of gradient, but from bottom up. It's done the same way, but horizontally. So, let's use all 3 kinds of light at once. The face light, the kicker and the background light. Let's start with the same background, the gradient from bottom up, and a kicker on the left side and a closed loop. And last but not least, in the background a right to left gradient that meets a kicker on the right side, and as the face light, a highly dramatic Rembrandt light. Okay, that was quite a lot of things going on there. But that is the beauty with this medium. You can pause the film at any time and watch the parts over and over and over again. But to conclude this, let's look at the chart over those typical standard portrait lights. And remember, they are all done with a small light source to really show the direction and shadows of each setup. If you use a big light source, the light will be softer and not so harsh. And this is exactly what we will dive into now: different light modifiers.